Welcome to the closing ceremony of the 16th World Conference on Tobacco or Health. I think we can all agree that this has been a fantastic week with many inspiring speakers and discussions. Please join me in welcoming Professor Lando, Chair of the Scientific Program Committee, to share the resolutions of the conference.
Thank you. I think I'm going to stand here so I can actually read the resolutions that I will be presenting. This was a consensus process. We invited input from tobacco control advocates around the world prior to the conference, during the conference. Our committee met twice, put the resolutions together, revised them, and so I'm going to go through. I'm not going to read them verbatim, but I'm going to highlight them. So our declarations of the 16th World Conference here in Abu Dhabi, preamble, and so we recognize a number of important issues just in the preamble, and I think I'm going to put my glasses on. Okay, so we recognize the harmfulness of all tobacco products and the contribution to disease and death. We recognize the burden, particularly in low and middle income countries. We recognize the need to address the tobacco epidemic as an essential priority, particularly in the context of non-communicable diseases, which was the theme of this conference, tobacco and non-communicable diseases, and protection of youth, the youth in the 21st century. We recognize the multidimensional harms of tobacco and the impact on sustainable development, including environment, poverty, agriculture, gender-related issues, and we recognize the tobacco industry as the vector of the epidemic. Furthermore, we recognize the importance of tobacco excise taxes that make tobacco less affordable and not only can reduce consumption and improve public health, but ideally generate additional revenue that can be used for public health objectives. We recognize the plight of tobacco growers, how they're exploited by the tobacco industry, and the need for explicit policies to support particularly small farmers to shift to livelihoods that are both beneficial to health and sustainable, beneficial to the environment. We recognize the importance of the Framework Convention as a tool for tobacco control. We also recognize concerns that actual implementation has fallen short of objectives. And so the conference calls for collaboration and coordination locally, nationally, regionally, and globally to fully implement the Framework Convention and move tobacco control forward. We call on the global tobacco community to redouble efforts, but also to reach out to additional stakeholders. That's critically important. We call on governments to be held to their commitment to reduce tobacco prevalence by 30% by 2025 through accelerated implementation of the Framework Convention. We specifically commend jurisdictions, including the Australian state of Tasmania, that are advancing initiatives to create tobacco-free generations for all persons born since the year 2000. And we affirm our support to all countries that have passed or considering adopting plain packaging or graphic health warnings that cover more than 85%, including Australia, Ireland, the UK, India, Pakistan, and Nepal, and we particularly ask them to stand firm against industry pressure. And so, the declarations. Number one, all countries that are not yet parties to the convention ratify or accede to the WHO FCTC. Number two, tobacco control indicators be included in the proposed post-2015 Sustainable Development Goals. Tobacco be elevated as a development priority at a global level. Number three, At least 30 countries will have adopted plain packaging. At least 100 countries will have pictorial warnings that cover at least 50% of the principal display areas of tobacco products from Article 11. Number 4, 60 countries include and implement tobacco control in all national health and development plans, including the NCD action plans and UN development assistance frameworks. 5th, the protocol to eliminate illicit trade in tobacco products will come into force. Number 6, all new and existing tobacco products be regulated under all tobacco control policy initiatives, and we specifically mention water pipes, given that we are here in this region and given the concern not only in the region but globally. Number 7, 40 countries will develop and introduce action plans and prioritize policies and interventions to protect children and youth to achieve the goal of no more tobacco in the 21st century. Number 8, going forward, governments must treat tobacco uniquely in all trade and investment and support one another in excluding tobacco from trade and investment agreements that are under negotiation. Number 9, all parties will establish and finance a multi-sectoral national coordinating mechanism fully firewalled from the tobacco industry and will adopt comprehensive measures to prevent tobacco industry interference in public health policies in line with Article 5.3 guidelines. Number 10, at least 15 countries will have 70% excise tax share in the retail price of tobacco products, Article 6. Excise is bolded because 70% excise tax, right now, very few countries meet that standard. Number 11, all parties meet their obligations under Article 8 to adopt national legislation mandating smoke-free indoor public places and workplaces, including bars and restaurants, and no provision for dedicated smoking areas. Number 12, 50 countries restrict or prohibit additives in tobacco products to include menthol as well as all other flavors. Number 13, 60 countries will have implemented a complete ban of all forms of tobacco advertising, promotion, and sponsorship. This includes cross-border, internet, and display of products at point of sale. Number 14, at least 50% of FCTC parties will have developed and published an official national tobacco dependence treatment strategy, Article 14. And finally, number 15, the United Nations should have concrete plans to convene a high-level meeting to address the major threat to humanity caused by tobacco use. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Lando. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce the delegates of the Youth Conference to share with us the highlights of their program and their vision for no more tobacco in the 21st century. Please welcome Ms. Halima Munir to the stage.
Hello and a very good afternoon to you all. I am Halima Munir from Pakistan, and on behalf of the 74 youth delegates of the conference from 40 different countries, I welcome you all to the closing ceremony of World Conference on Tobacco or Health. The youth pre-conference that was held on the 17th and 18th of March here resonated the global voice of youth, propagating the youth-led campaign NMT21C, which is short for No More Tobacco in 21st Century. NMT21C was launched in the International Conference on Public Health Priorities in the 21st Century, the Endgame for Tobacco, held in Delhi, India in 2013. NMT21C is a global campaign that seeks to converge the youth from all over the world to adopt the vision of a tobacco-free generation altogether. In the Youth Pre-Conference at the 16th WCTOH here, the youth delegates shared their insights and experiences in tobacco control, worked on their advocacy skills and capacity building, and also gave recommendations for further strategies and plans to reach this goal. We were encouraged and appreciated by several renowned leaders from all over the world, including Her Royal Highness Princess Dina Mered, Director General of King Hussein Cancer Foundation, Surgeon General Vice Admiral Vivek H. Murthy, Honorable Minister of Ireland Dr. James Riley, and Honorable Minister of Health of South Africa Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. We, the youth, are thankful to all of them for endorsing our campaign. The youth, ladies and gentlemen, have come a long way from being mere targets of the tobacco industry to becoming instruments of change, voicing their demands for no more tobacco in 21st century. Let's go through this journey together.
It started since before many of us could remember, but that doesn't really matter. This is the story of an industry that kills 6 million people every year, an industry that targets everyone regardless gender, race, profession, or age. Wait, this is the story of how this industry ends. Starting the 30s, international research started picking an increase in lung cancer linked to tobacco smoking. In the 50s, a series of studies was published giving first evidence that tobacco smoke indeed was a causal factor in lung cancer. 1964 marked the pivotal US Surgeon General's report, Health Consequences of Smoking. In 1965, the Federal Cigarette Labeling and Advertising was passed in the US and enforced in 1971. And then the tobacco industry retaliated.
With growing awareness around the world, the tobacco industry needed replacement smokers. It was best to catch us young. You want to look cool, you want to feel attractive, you want to be strong, distressed. Tobacco was sold as a solution to it all. Superheroes do it, friendly cartoon characters are doing it, your idolized celebrities are doing it. But over the years, the deceit was exposed more and more every day, and people started fighting back. In 1999, first meeting of the WHO FCTC group took place, and the tobacco industry started to get aggressive.
With the beginning of the millennium, big tobacco companies started to use more devious ways like surrogate advertisement and product placement. But the global tobacco control communities, including the government across the world, brought about stronger anti-tobacco regulations to prohibit exposure to tobacco. And this is when the youth decided to bring their voice into the battle. Youth across the world, including the youth delegates here, deliver their voices via universities, medical colleagues, NGOs, walk-in campaigns, and many other social activities. But now, it's time to step up and step forward.
It's time to give our voices a global platform and call for a complete end to tobacco.
The NMT21C is a global campaign, so let's hear the voices of youth saying no more tobacco in 21st century in their own languages.
Hey, what up, guys? How could he be so cool without me?
Oh yes, we sure can be cool without you selling death to us. The youth, ladies and gentlemen, need your support and guidance to lead the way for a tobacco-free generation, and we have come up with a youth declaration. May I request the members of Youth Conference Committee to please join us. I will now request Rita Agora from Kenya to please come and present the Youth Declaration.
We, youth delegates from 40 countries, got together for WCTOH this year with a vision for no more tobacco in the 21st century and to identify youth-led strategies to end the use of tobacco and recommend global action points to protect the present and future generations from the hazards of tobacco use. We recognize that a majority of tobacco users begin before the age of 18 years, and youth are the primary target of the tobacco industry. We also note with profound concern that if these tobacco trends continue, 250 million youth and children alive today will die of tobacco-related diseases, mostly in developing countries. We acknowledge that the results of the GYTS show no difference in current tobacco use trends among boys and girls in 58% of the countries surveyed. Therefore, we call upon the governments, international agencies, the global tobacco control community, civil society, and the media to take decisive action on deracinating tobacco from society to protect the largest ever population of youth from being exposed to the insidious tactics of the tobacco industry. We urge the youth and tobacco control experts to join forces to develop a framework for prioritizing policies to protect youth globally and to set time-bound targets to achieve the goal of no more tobacco in the 21st century. Secondly, youth across the world to actively participate in monitoring and reporting tobacco industry interference and tactics at any level to protect themselves and the youths in other countries from initiating tobacco use. As youths, we demand protection from exposure to all new forms of tobacco products that are introduced to keep people addicted to this deadly habit. Lastly, we urge youth to unite globally, raise their demands for full implementation of WCTOH FCTC on tobacco in all countries to positively influence the norms against tobacco use among youth. We commit to work hard towards our goal and show you our progress, and we need your encouragement when we meet for the next WCTOH in 2018. Together we can and we will achieve no more tobacco in the 21st century. Thank you.
Let's call for no more tobacco in 21st century, the end game for tobacco.
place in your heart, and I know that it is love. And this place could be much brighter than tomorrow. And if you really try, you'll find there's no need to cry. In this place, you'll feel there's no hurt or sorrow. There are ways to get there if you care enough for the living. Make a healthy space, make a better place. Heal the world, make it a better place. For you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. If you want to know why, there's a love that cannot lie. Love is strong, it only cares for joyful giving. If we try, we shall see. In this bliss we cannot feel. Fear and dread will stop existing and start living. Then it feels that always love's enough for us growing. So make a better place, make a better place. Hail the world, make it a better place. For you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. And the dream we were conceived in will reveal a joyful fate. And the world we once believed in will shine again in grace. Then why do we keep strangling life when this earth crucified its soul? Though it's plain to see this world is heavenly, be God's glory. So high, let our spirits never die. In my heart, I feel you are all my brothers. Create a world with no fear. Together we'll cry happy tears. See the nations turn their sword into plowshares. We could really get there if we care enough for the living. Make a little space to make a better place. Heal the world, make it a better place. For you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. The world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. Make it a better place for you Thank you so much.
Thank you to the youth delegates for the inspiring presentation. I have goosebumps, and I'm sure many of you do as well. As a committee member of the Youth Conference, I am particularly proud of the hard work and commitment the youth delegates have shown this week. I know that all of us here are going to give our support to these youth and the next generation in achieving a tobacco-free world. I would now like to welcome Professor Lando back onto the dais.
Aren't they truly inspiring? I'd like to give them one more hand, please. So it reinforces for me the importance of what we're doing, and basically a few reflections, personal comments. For me, it's been an incredible privilege to work so closely with the World Conference over these years, to recognize that these conferences have almost a 50-year history, going back to the first conference in 1967 in New York, where Robert F. Kennedy, the brother of the late president, was the keynote speaker. The visibility and impact of some of these conferences has been amazing. So for example, when WCTOH was in Beijing, and certainly a number of you were there, in 1997, the opening reception was held in the Great Hall of the People, and the President of China welcomed the delegates. It has been a journey for me going back to 1979 in Stockholm, where I attended my very first of these conferences, the Fourth World Conference in Stockholm. There has been much progress since in terms of coming together of stakeholders, recognizing common interesting goals, but we also need to recognize our adversary, and internal tobacco industry documents indicating deliberate plans to divide the tobacco control community, to seek to create conflicts, to exacerbate existing conflicts, and that's something we just cannot buy into. We've had many successes, a number of things that might have been thought impossible. Irish bars going smoke-free a few years ago, who would have thought? And now I just heard this week about Beijing going smoke-free, Beijing, China. So, what other impossible things are going to happen next? Exciting progress in many respects, but major challenges. Tobacco is still immensely profitable. Prevalence is still increasing in many places. I firmly believe that we in the tobacco control community need to reach out and engage additional stakeholders, people beyond those that we talk to routinely. We've tried to frame this from a human rights perspective, because tobacco has major impact on human rights, the rights of women, the rights of children, attracting environmentalists given the environmental harms done by tobacco, working to gain new allies. There was discussion here about actually enlisting finance ministers who are often not thought to be our allies, but they can recognize the potential for increased revenue as well as the public health benefit. One concern I have is, while I am extremely grateful to people like Michael Bloomberg and Bill Gates, they've been amazing, I'm concerned about the level of dependency that we have and the need to find more dedicated funding, the needs for governments to step up, which in general they have not been doing. One thing that we discussed as a possibility is more civil liability, although there was also discussion of criminal liability against the industry. There are deep pockets. I find it exceptionally frustrating. I found this in my role as being in charge of fundraising for the Mumbai conference, that while we were desperately struggling to raise revenue to support the conference, British American Tobacco could have reached into their petty cash drawer and supported it. There's already evidence of impact of this conference. I understand that more than 100 journalists from around the world have been covering the conference. And of course, many of you were there when Michael Bloomberg announced, along with Bill Gates, the anti-tobacco trade litigation fund to support low-income countries that were being sued by the tobacco industry. So we have many challenges. We also have opportunities going forward, but to take full advantage of those opportunities, we have to be careful about turf and territoriality issues. I would argue the world's big enough for all of us. We can support each other. I am delighted that we now have a permanent secretariat as the union, and I would like to thank the union for their immense work and support in organizing this conference. We have a vision going forward to strategize, to further increase the impact and the reach of the World Conferences, but also to link with regional priorities and regional conferences. And so one of the questions going forward, and I would welcome input, please, is to how to further increase the impact and relevance of the World Conference, thinking of opportunities to be strategic, to link specifically, for example, with the Conference of the Parties, and to support those initiatives as well as other key initiatives. I see our strength as each other, the passion and dedication of tobacco control advocates, and I am privileged to be part of a global community. I feel like I've got friends and colleagues from around the world. It's immensely gratifying. We have compelling stories to tell. We need to tell those stories. We need to continue to grow the movement. We need to move forward in implementing the resolutions of the 16th World Conference. And I would specifically, also on a personal note, like to acknowledge John Sefrin of the American Cancer Society. He's stepping down as CEO of the American Cancer Society. He has had such a huge impact on tobacco control, supporting these conferences, and we will miss him in that role. So with that, I would like to announce the tobacco, or to cue the Tobacco Atlas video. I find that incredibly powerful in just 2 minutes, and it reinforces for me the importance of what we're doing and the need to continue. Now, traditionally, when there's the announcement of the next World Conference, it's in this case the 2018 World Conference, the 17th World Conference, this in the past has been a closely held secret. I'm tempted to ask how many of you don't know where the next World Conference is. The cat is kind of out of the bag, as we say, but I am pleased and delighted to announce that the next World Conference on Tobacco or Health, The 17th World Conference will be held in Cape Town, South Africa. And I also would like to say that ever since I've been involved with the International Liaison Group and the committee that decides the venue for the conferences, I've had a dream that the World Conference must be in Africa. With this 50-year history, it never has been. So I am personally delighted and gratified that it will be on the African continent. So there is an excellent video that will, I hope, increase your enthusiasm for the opportunity to go to Cape Town 3 years hence. So, to close, I would like to make personal thank yous to people with whom I've worked most closely on this conference. My colleague and friend, Wal Al-Mahmid, who is the president of this conference. I would also like to thank our local hosts for all their hospitality. And then for my colleagues who I work with most closely from the union, Niels Billow and Louisa Stewart, thank you. You went through a lot to make this happen, a lot of stress and angst, but we did it. And I would particularly like to thank all of you who took the time away from your home and families, many of you traveling long distances, to come to Abu Dhabi, to care as much about tobacco and tobacco control. So thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Professor Lando, and thank you to all of you, the delegates of the 16th World Conference on Tobacco or Health. Please join us now just outside the auditorium for a closing reception. We hope to see all of you in Cape Town in 2018. Good evening and safe travels.